Alright, welcome back everyone to the seasonal wrap-up show. It's a new year, and it's time for a new batch of anime with the winter 2026 season. Although, I am jumping in a little bit early this season. I am recording this at the end of January right now. And I'm doing that because we got a whole bunch of shows up the top here that are ending early, and so I want to just jump into these right away. We'll get to the rest of the other 50 something anime on this list after this video, but in case you haven't tuned in before, what I do is I go through all of these anime in whatever order I decide to do, usually in the order that they finish airing, and I try them out, and I watch them until either I finish them, or I get bored / I hate them, and then I drop them, and then I talk about them. So, let's get into it with Princess Principal Crown Handler Chapter 4. This is the fourth out of, I believe, 6 movies for the Princess Principal franchise that are planned. It's been a real up and down so far with these movies. First one was solid, but I barely remember any of it. Second one was real fucking good. And the third one was slightly notably disappointing by comparison. So, let's see where this fourth one goes. Okay, first new anime of the season, and it is mid. Unfortunately. Alright, so that's the fourth Princess Principal movie at this point in the Crown Handler series. It just now dawned on me what the title means, Crown Handler. It's like the fight over the throne for the kingdom. But boy, this was what happened in this film? Like, I understand the point of this entry. The point of this entry is our group, the principal team, is now being forced to work as double agents, and they are trying to hide the fact that they are double agents. And that was pretty much the whole point of the film, because really not a whole lot else happened aside from Edward being broken out of prison at the end. At least we got that. That's gonna make the next movie fun, hopefully. But like the Graham Turner plot in the middle of all this was not super interesting. Like, mechanically, the narrative makes sense. There is a narrative drive in there in theory, but it's just not all that compelling in reality, in practicality. I've probably seen the guy working to see his wife one last time thing so many times already that it's just, there's nothing in particular about this guy that makes it interesting. There's nothing in particular about the principal team doing the double agent stuff that was interesting this time. There was potential there, like Angie going off, potentially going rogue at the very end would have been, not going rogue, but like defying Dorothy's orders for the sake of keeping Charlotte safe would have been really interesting. And in theory it was interesting. In theory, I understand how Angie got to that point. But A, it was very sudden, and B, it wasn't presented visually in a very interesting way. And that's another gripe about this film. This is by far the least interesting looking that Princess Principal has ever been. At least as far as I can remember. Like, there was like one shot that that probably looked kind of cool, but even then, I don't think it looked really cool because it turned into anime blood pinata stuff at the very end. Like that's not how gore works, unfortunately. Which, like, this is a movie. This isn't a TV series, so you can do gore if you want. I guess for the sake of the franchise, they don't want to, even though it's pretty bloody as is. So why not just do like muscle, sinew, and such at this point? I don't get it. But like, there also wasn't a lot of opportunities for this to look good based on the script. Because like, they really don't do a whole lot of spy stuff in this. Like, at least compared to previous entries. And the big action scene happens like 48 minutes into this 59-minute movie. And even then, it's not impressive. It's really not. It's a mediocre car chase. I don't have a lot to say about this. I really don't. There's like nothing interesting to say about this movie. And I'm kind of... This is like perfect delineation point of, am I going to continue with the sunk cost fallacy of finishing this franchise? Because there's supposed to be 6 movies, I believe. I believe there's supposed to be 6. So we got 2 more after this. Do I continue and just finish out the franchise and waste potentially 2 hours of my life in the future? Or do I just stop here? Now, the whole point of this show is for me to say I'm stopping here. But I can't really guarantee that. Because, like, on the one hand, this is turning out to be a overall disappointing sequel series to the original Princess Principal franchise, which it's not like it was like this from the start. Like, go way back into my seasonal wrap-up show series and watch me talk about the second movie, where it's like one of the coolest fucking things I saw that season, probably that year actually. Like, that shit fucking ruled. Go back to doing that instead of just this lame stuff. Like, there really was not a lot of meat on the bones to this one. It was just not good. So maybe if I hear good things about the 5th movie, I'll probably tune in. But who's watching this at this point? Is it just me? Am I the only one who cares at this point? Obviously not literally, but I don't know anyone else who watches Princess Principal at this point who is keeping up with these movies. Kind of in the same way that I don't know anybody who's keeping up with the Girls and Panzer movies, but I definitely know there's a much bigger audience for that. Because those movies are way cooler. I think my track record for scoring those movies is much higher than the Princess Principal movies because Tsutomu Mizushima is the GOAT. I don't even know who directed this movie. The only person I know who worked on this movie is Yuki Kadra on the soundtrack, and it's honestly some of her least impressive work. Yeah, this is just kind of turning into a disappointment. It's completely, utterly forgettable.
Okay, well, that was unfortunately a major disappointment. Princess Principal, Crown Handler, Chapter 4 is complete. We're going at the bottom of the list for now with, I'll give you a decent 5 for now, but I might bump it down to a light 5 later. We'll see. Alright, next up is Cat's Eye. This is a reboot of the classic Thief manga, I believe. Whatever, I guess not necessarily Phantom Thief, but whatever genre of manga you want to call that. This is one of the earlier versions of that. I believe the original's from like the 80s. Have not seen anybody talk about this reboot, probably because it's on Disney Plus, but let's give it a shot anyway.
Wow, that was an incredibly mediocre opening action scene, or opening spy thief, phantom thief scene. I got nothing. What a waste of an Otto song. What a waste of a Yuki Hayashi soundtrack that actually sounds like it might be something slightly different than what Yuki Hayashi normally does. Not completely different, but slightly different. I really liked the choral harmonies as they were escaping. That was really cool. Yeah, again, this is another one where it's like mechanically should be cool, but the animation is just not shooting for it. It's polished at best, or I should say, a generous description of this would be me saying that it is mostly polished. It's not, but it's really not swinging for the fences with the action. The escape plan was pretty basic, and I didn't really get a sense for any of the characters during this opening theft scene, aside from maybe the short-haired girl being the free-spirited short-haired girl, as the trope demands. Yeah, I got nothing.
Yeah, that was not really all that interesting. Cat's Eye, off the list. Next, Cosmic Princess Kaguya. This is the first feature-length film from Shingo Yamashita, anime auteur extraordinaire. Let's see if he's got a solid narrative to back up his animation chops.
Alright. Solid showing for Shingo Yamashita's first feature film directorial debut. I don't know if he's directed anything in particular before this, like a full series or anything, or even an OVA. I know he's done a lot of animation work that's very flashy, but as far as I know, this is his first big directorial project, Cosmic Princess Kaguya, which was pretty good. Honestly, I have a little bit less to... Well, we'll see how much I have to say about it, because a lot of really cool things, and obviously his animation style is the star of the show for this one, and not just his work, just a lot of really solid animation work across the board. It's so incredibly fluid and very... What's the word? I guess fluid's a great way to say it. It's very fluid and very intense and explosive, and there's a lot of motion to his work as well. A lot of the way that the frame moves across the scene, and the way that characters interact within the frame as it moves. Those are like the big highlights of his work, as well as some whoever he gets as his like colorist. I'm a big fan of this. There's a particular shade of like this bluish green color that I see a lot in his works that I'm a big fan of. As well as like these very soft, like pinkish, orangish kind of hues. Those show up in his works a lot as well, from what I've seen. It's very pleasant to look at. I will say though, when you have like a whole movie's worth of that, I'm not gonna say it becomes less special, but how do I describe this? Yamashita's work has always felt like sort of like an accent mark to me, like something that's like you put it like bam, here, incredible cut out of nowhere. Not necessarily out of nowhere, but like, damn, that looks really good. But when you line up a bunch of them, it starts to, the thought that came to my mind was video game cutscene, because like that's kind of how a lot of his work is structured in a way, like the way that things are blocked and the way that things move. It is a little video gamey in a lot of ways, and that can work to a certain degree, but when it becomes like, when you see the same, what am I trying to say? I want to be clear, I'm being very nitpicky about this, because this is a very good looking film, but like, God, what am I trying to say with this? I am noticing the animation in a way other than, damn, that is some good animation. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So, and also, again, looks really good, but I don't think anything in here is stuff where I would say this is Yamashita's best work either. I don't know. Anyway, as for the story, this is another reinterpretation of the tale of Princess Kaguya, which we have seen many, many, many times before in anime. The most notable for me being like the Ghibli movie by Isao Takahata, which is just a straight retelling of the original myth. We have Kaguya-sama, of course, which takes bits and pieces of the Kaguya myth. We have Kaguya as a villain now in Yaiba. And now this. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones that I've just skipped over, but they're less prominent than those, I guess. So now we have this, which is a modern reinterpretation of the Kaguya myth that still sticks. It still has the basic outline of the Kaguya myth, which at first had me a little bit concerned, because personally I don't really like the Kaguya myth that much. It's just not one that hits for me, I guess. I don't know. It just never really resonated with me. So anytime they just go for the retelling of the Kaguya story, my mind just kind of goes, okay, we're doing this again. But there were definitely enough twists and turns in this to make this a little bit more exciting. I like that we are reinterpreting it through the lens of VTubing and online culture and idols and all of that stuff. The attention to detail of that was really solid as well. Like, despite some of the things that could have very clearly like derailed the world building for this, because like we have another like Mamoru Hosoda style virtual world that people dive into, and as Hosoda has done more and more of those, they've become more and more bloated, I guess. And it's the closer we get to that reality, the harder it is to do that reality in fiction, because the practicalities of it become more obvious. Like especially like in this film, they use it to make money. They don't say how much, but it's a pretty decent chunk of change based on the stuff that they're spending it on. But I will say they keep the explanation of the world, of this virtual world, to a minimum until the very end. With the big old sci-fi twist. By the way, if you have not tuned into the seasonal wrap-up show before, as I say at the beginning of every new season, these are spoiler-filled reviews, so you have been warned. In any case, what was I talking about? Right, the world building. It is kept to the absolute minimum that it needs to be in order for the world to function. And honestly, I think that kind of works in its favor. Because I don't think explaining this world would get you any points. I don't think it would make the world more interesting. So just using it as a tool to convey the plot is solid enough. I do wish that the plot and the character arcs were a little bit more beefy. No, not beefy. Beefy's the wrong word. I guess a little bit more off the beaten path, maybe? Or a little bit more intense? I don't know what I was looking for, but the first hour to hour and a half of this, on and off, I was really feeling the length of this film, because this is an almost 2.5 hour movie. This is 2 hours and 22 minutes, I believe, which is pretty beefy for an anime film. That is... sorry. That is not a length to sneeze at. With I would say the vast majority of anime films are sub 2 hours, at least in my experience. So adding another anime episode length on top of that, there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it bloat, but the pacing is definitely slower than I would have liked. I think if we had tightened, if we had tightened some stuff up, if they had tightened some stuff up in the first hour and a half here and there, trimmed this down to maybe just over 2 hours or under 2 hours if possible. I don't know if there's enough stuff that could be cut in order for that to happen. I mean, there might be, because, there are a lot of characters in this that just really don't have personalities aside from stock personality that still show up a lot. So maybe, I don't know, because the more I think about it, the more I think about, well, they were kind of useful for that one scene. So it's I don't know. Something needed to be done with the pacing for this film in the first half to get things going a little better. Or not, well, getting going wasn't really the hard part. It was the keeping it going was the hard part. There was also a lot of an occasional jaggedness to the pacing, the editing in terms of the pace. What am I trying to say? There was a lot of, oh, suddenly this is happening, I guess. So that could have been cleaned up. Tighten some stuff up there. I don't think there's necessarily any plot lines I would cut, but I think trimming it up could have done something better for it. I don't dislike these characters by any stretch. Iroha's a really solid main character with a easily understandable motivation, and I genuinely felt for her as she was pushing past her limits to achieve her internal goals, as well as how she ended up interacting with Kaguya as the series goes on. And Kaguya functions as a really solid manic pixie dream girl kind of character. Yeah, there's nothing there was nothing wrong with any of this. It's just that the core parts of it did not resonate with me quite as strongly as I would have liked. Maybe I'm just not in the... Maybe I'm not in the right headspace for this one. Who knows? But I like the optimism of it. I like the rejection of the regular Kaguya myth ending in Fate, which, despite that adding another probably 20 minutes to the film, that was probably one of my favorite parts of it, is the post Kaguya leaving for the moon scene. Like, everything after that was really solid. Like, okay, now we're gonna get her back. Including the weird sci-fi twists of everything, which is, like, very interesting. But also, boy, you don't think too hard about that one, because like, they don't explain that at all. How she sort of became a VTuber inhabiting this weird server setup that she, via the bamboo shoot that she came to Earth in. And also there's time travel because we can. Because fuck you. Yeah, I guess that's just my general thoughts on this. It's good, and I wish I felt stronger about it than I do. All the songs are pretty okay on the most part. Not a lot of them stood out. I liked X Otogi Banashi, and I liked the song that plays at the beginning of the climax, at the beginning of the final fight against the people from the moon. That was pretty solid. That one felt very VTuber-y, in terms of its composition and instrumentation. The other ones were fine, but I don't really remember them. Actually, I don't even remember the two that I just said, but I remember liking them more in the moment. Yeah, this was fun. If you got a lot of time to just sit down and watch this one, go right ahead. I actually ended up kind of breaking it up a little bit over the course of my morning because, man, it was... There was a lot to get through. But, yeah. It was a good movie.
Alright, Cosmic Princess Kaguya is complete. And for now, you're going at the top of the list with a strong 6. Could have been better. I think I'm definitely in the minority on people in terms of how much I like this one. But still solid stuff. Just I was hoping for a little more stuff that would personally resonate with me. Alright. What we got next? Love Through a Prism. This is a Netflix batch drop show. I think it's about art. I like art. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, that was fine. I guess I watched the first episode of Love Through a Prism. I think that's the title. It's... The word that comes to mind is standard. Not generic, just like standard. It's a very standard setup for a story with not a lot of bells and whistles added to it, aside from the setting, with this being a Japanese girl being sent to an English art academy in what looks like the 1900s. I didn't catch the date at the beginning of the episode. And your typical, like, unreasonable time frame from a parental figure of 6 months to become the number one of the academy was a decent hook of sorts. But that's really all that was interesting, I guess, about this one. You got the quirky pretty boy as the main, who I'm going to assume is going to become a love interest at some point, or not. That would be surprising, but I don't particularly care to find out. The artwork, or I should say, the background art is incredibly gorgeous, and the attention to detail in the pieces of art is really solid, but nothing about the way the art is presented makes me feel anything, I guess. I guess for comparison, something like Blue Period, for as disappointing an adaptation as that was, it at least made me feel things when I saw the art that was being portrayed. This is now, granted, that could also be like the period of art as well, with Blue Period having a bit more of a modern period, like it's present day stuff, whereas this is a period piece, and so art was the art of the day, the trending art of the times were vastly different. So maybe that's it, but I don't know. It's just not, for a show that is about art, and it is a very beautiful looking show. It's very pretty. It's very crisp and polished. But for a show about art and making art, first episode did not make me go, wow, art is really cool. Which seems like a prerequisite for a show like this. So, I think I'll pass.
Alright. Not quite what I was hoping for. Love Through Prism. It's off the list. Next, Watanare. Next Shine. There's no freaking way I'll be your lover. Unless, this is a TV special that dropped on New Year's, and it dropped like 5 episodes at once. I liked the first season. It was wacky and insane, and them girls is messy as hell. Show me some more of them messy ass girls.
Finally, we got some real polyamory representation, in the sense that everyone in the polycule is a catty psycho disaster lesbian. Okay, Watanare Next Shine, the TV special sequel to the first season, in which all of these girls are just as insane and wacky as last season. And honestly, it's more of the same for the most part. You can go back to the summer season where I talked about the first season and see my thoughts on it there. There's less consent issues this time, so that's good. That's a step forward for these characters. I'm not constantly worried that they're going to assault each other. That wasn't as big in the first season, but it definitely still happened more than once, I think. But I think the only major changes, aside from the actual content of this season, from the first season is, on the one hand, I do think the directing and like the storyboarding and such are a little less ambitious than the first season. Not by a huge degree, but like ever so slightly. There are slightly less cool cuts or cool editing tricks or so on and so forth. Slightly less cool imagery, just by a hair. Enough to be noticeable, let's put it that way. Or maybe I'm just remembering a lot more from the first season than there actually are. On the other hand, the delivery of the dialogue, for the most part, is much more natural and not screeching down the street at 87 miles an hour. Except for Satsuki, they didn't fix that for her for some reason. So she still is a motor mouth, and it's hard to keep up with what she's saying sometimes. aside from that, not a lot of changes from the first season. It's still hilarious. Still got really cute girls in it with some pretty decent ecchi scenes. It's still pretty captivating to watch. One in the sense of I genuinely want to know what happens to the characters, and also in the sense of what the fuck are these people doing? Jesus Christ, this is insane. But in terms of the actual content of the season, this is Kaho's arc, sort of. Well, for the most part, it's Kaho's arc. The lolly from last season, from the group, who didn't really get a whole lot of focus during the first season, and I had a feeling she was going to be a special kind of weirdo, and it turns out she's a cosplay weirdo, which is awesome. She was very fun. I do like this notion of her having to put on a front in order to do the thing that she loves, which is unfortunately a thing that a lot of us, I think, have to deal with sometimes, of just putting on the facade of being a normal person and just being an extrovert, and then being able to, and then when you're alone, switching back to introvert mode. I really liked how her arc mirrors Renako's arc this season, of her massive, crippling self-hatred. I'm not sure if I covered it in the first season or if it was as prevalent in the first season, but it was definitely prevalent here. Definitely prevalent here. In the sense of, like, both of these super hot and cool anime girls confessed to me, but why would they confess to me? I suck. I can't pick one because I will make them unhappy, and I'll also make the other one that I don't pick unhappy. Woe is me? I say that in a sarcastic sense because that's kind of how Kaho takes it, in the sense of, like, you fucking idiot. Shut up. You have two super hot girls confess to you. Woe is you. But, which, on the one hand, fair. On the surface, it does seem like a very stupid, selfish thing to be upset about. But on the other hand, yes, Renako is a horribly self-hating kind of person. And just does not see anything genuinely good about herself. And it's through her cosplay adventures with Kaho that she starts to understand that it's not entirely, that you can't just base your entire life around how other people perceive you, and how and that you just have to love yourself and love the things that you love. God, Evangelion is in everything, isn't it? I just made that realization. Shocking that one of the most influential anime of all time is still influential. And that it has a very timeless lesson about human connections that surfaces in many other pieces of art. I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you. But in any case, we got the poly ending. Awesome. Which, every anime love triangle that ends in the poly ending is a step towards a brighter future. I wish I had done it in a less cringy and embarrassing way than standing on a catwalk in front of a crowd of people hashing this conversation out, which I don't think the show fully recognizes once they're in the moment. Like, it kind of just glosses over that. But, like, I was cringing so hard when that started. I was like, no, 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 don't do this in front of a crowd of people. No. Oh my god. But yeah, they kind of just gloss over that. And we get the poly ending in a way that's very deserved, to be honest, in the way that Renako frames it, in the sense of, like, I'm not doing this to make you all happy. I'm doing this to make me happy. I want both of you. Which, in any other circumstance, probably wouldn't work. I would not try that one at home, kids. But in the sense of she's coming to terms with getting over her own self-doubt and self-hatred, it works pretty well. I liked it. Most of the time I'm always going to like the poly ending. And honestly, Mai was not terrible in this season as she was in the first season. She seems to be toning herself down a bit, perhaps as she realizes just how in love she is with Renako, and how much that's affecting her. So, good on her for that. I still don't like Ajisai's voice acting that much. It's a little too fake for me. But yeah, this was good. But then we got another fucking goddamn cliffhanger at the very end of this, where Satsuki's like, hey, let me in on the polycule. So maybe that means we're getting another season? Like, I'm not saying they wouldn't put that in there just to fuck with people, but like, hey, buy the Blu-rays, we'll get more Watanare. Still looks really good. The character designs are really solid. I love the color palette for this show. Generally pretty solid editing and framing and such. Sorry, it's very late when I'm filming this, but yeah. It's more of the same, but with a really solid resolution to that first season. It's good stuff.
Alright, I got pretty much exactly what I was expecting. Watanare Next Shine is complete. And now you're going at the top of the list for now with, I'm going to give you a light 7, just like the first season. Fun stuff. I'm really hoping for more from this franchise. I really like it. Alright. Last one for this video. My end cap for this first entry. You and Idol Precure. This is the new Precure entry for the season. Obviously about idols. I like idols. And I like Precure. Haven't heard a lot of people talking about this one as it aired. Except for like the first couple episodes. That's not necessarily an indicator with Precure though. So let's give it a shot.
Alright, well, unfortunately, that was a bit of a letdown. I got about 10 and a half episodes into You and Idol Precure, which is much farther into shows than I typically get on this in my seasonal anime binges. But with magical girl shows, especially with like long-running magical girl shows like Precure, I tend to give a little bit more leeway, not because I think the first episodes are bad or anything. Like, the first episode of this was pretty solid, but it's more so I want to get an idea for the episodic rhythm that it builds for itself, because Precure, with the exception of like part of Star Twinkle from what I've seen, Precure is just like episodic across the board. It is, and even it's a stretch to say that Star Twinkle wasn't episodic in certain for the majority of its run. The hell am I talking about? This is how how the Precure usually goes. So it's sort of like, okay, I want to get a rhythm. I want to see how it handles the entertainment value on an episode by episode basis, because that's sort of the meat and potatoes of magical girl shows, is how entertaining is each episode on its own. And honestly, You and Idol is just really average. There's nothing like, there's not a lot that's outright bad about it. There is some kind of lame stuff here and there, but the worst thing I can say about it is that it's just kind of boring a lot of the time. So, like, and you've probably heard me talk about Precure stuff before. How many Precures have I covered on the seasonal wrap-up show? I think I started with Tropical Rouge. So we had Tropical Rouge, then Delicious Party, then Soaring Sky, and then Wonderful. So I've completed 4 just on the seasonal wrap-up show. And this is the first one that I have actually dropped. So I guess, honestly, it's going to be hard to talk about because a lot of my complaints come down to it's boring. Although I do have some nitpicks in the realm of like the visual presentation. I like the character designs. They're pretty solid. Nothing hugely memorable. They are pretty derivative, but a lot of Precure designs are pretty derivative. I will say the Cure Idol's henshin sequence, the transformation sequence, on a technical level, one of the most impressive things I've ever seen, because there is so much movement and so many frames. Like, they are animating on ones so often that it's just so goddamn impressive to look at. It is so cool. Which honestly made the other 2 transformation sequences look way less impressive by contrast, because they don't go for that style of hyper high frame rate stuff. It's just they're more standard looking transformation sequences. So it's kind of like they blew all their energy on the first transformation sequence. And you can kind of say that for the rest of the show as well, at least from the first 10 episodes that I've seen. There's been a trend lately with Precure's like action scenes getting better and better and better with each season. And I think this one's probably the first one to break that trend, because the fight scenes are just kind of okay. They're not incompetent, they're not bad, but compared to stuff from like Soaring Sky or Wonderful from last year, just not that impressive. I really don't like the villain designs. They are a little too cartoony and goofy for my taste. There's a lot of extra cartooniness this season from what I've seen. Like some of the cutaway chibi gags, the art style they shift into is a lot flatter in terms of like its color palette and its like design. So it's a little weird there. Also, the final attacks are all CG sequences, which, as far as I know, is a first for Precure. I don't at least from all of the Precure series that I've seen, I have not seen any where the final attacks are like whole CG sequences, and they're not bad. Like, if I'm being honest, Precure CG tends to be better than a lot of the rest of the industry's CG, because they put so much effort into making the models look very cute and adorable and having solid facial expressions. And they do that, but even still, it just doesn't have the same oomph as a higher impact, like 2D sequence. Sometimes the lip sync issues are more noticeable when you have a CG model than when you have 2D models. Just because of the way the mouth moves by comparison. Also, there's a lot of editing in this that irks me a little bit. Like the timing of cuts, the way shots are cut together. I have a lot of issues with the editing there. Which brings me to the fact that this was directed by Chiaki Kon. That Chiaki Kon, the Higurashi and Sailor Moon Eternal Chiaki Kon. She also directed, I think, season 3 of... Yeah, she directed season 3 and Eternal for the Sailor Moon reboot. She directed Higurashi. She directed a lot of boys love stuff. I'm trying to remember some of the other stuff she's done. But apparently she's dabbled in Precure a lot before this. And this is her first full series. And honestly, not her most impressive work. It's not great. And considering her reputation, I guess, I don't know. I don't know why I was expecting something a little darker, but like, or at least something a little bit moodier, maybe. But it's just a very standard approach to a Precure series so far. And I will admit, Kon's like most recent work has not been particularly impressive either. Like, I believe she did The Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, which I covered, what was that, 2023? And then the year before that was Play It Cool Guys, or whatever. Which was basically a nothing kind of show. So, I think Kon may have lost her luster a little bit. She is far from her prime at this point, I would say. If her past 3 directorial works are anything to speak of. Or I guess, would it be past 3? Because I don't remember when Sailor Moon Eternal came out. Was that 2022 or 2023? I don't remember. Because that Sailor Moon Eternal was pretty solid. At least the second movie was. The first movie was kind of But anyway, all is to say, the overall presentation of this one is pretty lackluster, and the narrative is really not catching me either. The narrative elements, I should say. I think all of the characters are fine. I liked Kokoro's sort of rejection of the call, rejection of the hero's journey, I guess you could say, when she's like, oh, I can be a Precure? That's going to be awesome. Oh, wait, the Precure have to fight these evil monsters? No, that's terrifying. Fuck that. I can't do that. And then eventually comes around to, but gosh dang it, I really want to be an idol. So, yes, I think I can do this, actually. And then she turns out to be just fine at doing it. I think that's the most interesting part of the first 10 episodes by far. And again, there's like nothing particularly wrong or bad about the episodic stuff so far, other than it's boring and kind of lame at times. Like the 7 Wonders of Nana, or whatever, that episode was really lame and weird. I did not like that at all. But yeah, it's as for like where it goes with the idol stuff, it does this weird thing where at the front, near the front of the series, they get like a manager character, and he's like, no, we're not doing all the standard idol stuff because we need to keep your identity secret and stuff. But then as the series goes on, they start doing more of the standard idol stuff, like handshakes, meet and greets and CDs and recordings and stuff like that. I assume they'll have like a concert at some point. And that stuff's fine. It's just, the show is just so okay. And it does not spark joy, unfortunately. It does not have like that little extra bit to it that makes me go like, yes, this is a Precure series I want to stick with. Like it tries to do the idols inspiring people with happiness and joy and just that moe feeling of encouragement and stuff. It tries to do that, but it never really fully captures that feeling. It does not make me go, yes, I would want one of those idols to be my Oshi. Like, there's nothing in there like that, as like compared to like in Soaring Sky with like Sora, yet does very much embody the essence of heroism, and Yui in Delicious Party and her love for food and the way that she views food within her social life sparked joy within me. I went on a little bit of a diatribe about a member of my family and how I shared memories of food with them before they passed away, and how that first episode of Delicious Party really hit me dead center. And there's really nothing like that in You and Idol so far. And I gave it 10 episodes. So at this, usually around like the 10, 11 episode mark is where there's usually like a big thing in Precure stuff. Maybe it's in the 13th episode to this, because I sort of vaguely browsed some episode summaries. But like, it's usually around this point where they sort of build towards a first quarter climax, a first core climax of sorts. And if that's happening, the stuff that's leading up to it just isn't that interesting. And all of the episodic stuff has been okay at best. And yeah, I just don't really feel like continuing this one, which is a shame. The concept had excuse me. The concept had a lot of legs to it, but as I've said many times in this recording now, I guess, it did not spark joy.
Alright, well, that was unfortunately a dud. You and Idol Precure coming off the list. The first Precure drop of the seasonal wrap-up show. That's wild. Alright. In any case, that's probably the last for this video, unless Beastars drops at the very beginning of March. They still haven't announced an air date for that, but if it doesn't, tune back in for the next episode where we'll go through the rest of this gigantic-ass list. It's gonna be a fun time.